Lloyd Vance, his weekly spot, kind enough to join us on Tuesday at 105 on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Does a great job covering the NFL, contributing editor and writer as well for the NFL Network. How you been, bud?
Doing good, Q. It's a wacky season, but 29 teams have at least one win, so they're all in it.
Yeah, listen, it is. There's the parity. We thought going in this was going to be a very different, unique season. The NFL, the NFC, I should say, is a little more top-heavy right now than the AFC. You've got quarterback carousel. You've got rookie quarterback starting. Let's get into last night's game. And listen, I know you'll tune in from time to time. The roughing the passer penalties and the roughing the passer calls, it's getting out of hand. I understand the player safety, the quarterback safety, but I actually related to this. When you're watching a third down pass play and you're waiting to see if there's contact and a flag's thrown. Well, now every time the quarterback drops back to pass and there's a flag in the backfield, the first thing you're going to look at or you're going to think of is it pass interference. I'm sorry, is it roughing the passer? And that's where I have a problem.
Yeah, Q, I totally have to agree with you. There's 5 called last evening, and I saw one that maybe was true roughing the passer, but you're just seeing this over and over again where the referees are trying to make this emphasis on this. They're driving the quarterback into the ground, and you can barely hit them. You can't put your full body weight on them. And, we saw Hayes, the defensive lineman from the Dolphins, he kind of hurt himself because he didn't want to totally hit the quarterback, and he tears his knee up. So this is a very egregious situation. It's something – it doesn't pass the eyeball test. That's the only way I can really put it. Any fan can see what is roughing the passer and what's not. And that Clay Matthews play where he sacks Alex Smith and picks him up, drives him to the ground, good form tackle, and they throw the flag on him. It's just ridiculous. This is something they're going to have to fix. And you don't want it to affect something in the playoffs, kind of like the Tuck rule back in the day.
But again, how can you week in and week out? Like, to me, I just don't. I'm trying to look at some of these plays, and I can't think in the mind of a player and/or a referee. So I'm watching these games unfold, and now that the NFL's coming out, and we're talking about the competition committee again, it just there's a disconnect, right? To me, I don't think there's an excuse. What they're doing is they're basically butchering enforcing a penalty. It's
right.
Again, to me, I look at it as it's as simple as offsides. Either you roughed the passer or you didn't. And I don't know. They're picking and choosing how they're enforcing this. And it almost seems as though, and I would rarely say this, you're almost picking on Clay Matthews because now it's reputation.
Yeah, I just can't believe some of these calls, and it's incredible. They're going to have to review this. I know everybody's saying that's protecting the NFL is saying, look, they're evaluating and calling the play as it's written today, but whether it's written correctly or not, it's just not right the way they're calling the game. It's affecting plays. As you were saying, every time you're turning around saying, okay, did something happen, did something not happen? And that Gerald McCoy play, and you saw where he barely touched him. They had him mic'd up, and he's saying, I'm sorry.
Right.
These defensive guys just don't know what to do with themselves. And Clay Matthews, as you're saying, he's becoming the poster boy, Next thing you know, he's going to be Chuck Cecil. I don't know if you remember that.
Sure, absolutely. The hardest hitting, dirtiest, on Cover Sports.
He's not. This guy's not Chuck Cecil. He's
right.
He's barely, he's making plays. He's not trying to drive them in the ground or picking them up, the kind of things that we saw in the past growing up watching football. The defensive linemen like Turkey Stearns and the rest of them guys got away with. They're not allowing those types of hits, but they've gone too far when a formed tackle is no longer a formed tackle and it's roughing the passer.
I know Fitzpatrick had his struggles last night. I believe at this moment he gives Tampa Bay the best shot at winning some football games. And if you actually dig deeper and you look at some of these numbers, he's been a more effective quarterback over his last 13 games than Jameis Winston. I mean, the numbers bear that out. Now, again, he struggled last night, but you saw the fight, you saw the resolve, and I also think this is it's an underlining thing here that no one's talking about. They just seem to respond and want to play for him, and that's the players. And I don't necessarily think that was the case with Winston.
Yeah, Dirk Cutter, who's the head coach there, and Todd Leicht, who's the general manager, they seem to be firmly in the corner of Ryan Fitzpatrick. And why not? The guy threw for 400 yards in his third consecutive game, NFL record to start the season. Obviously, he had those 3 consecutive interceptions that he'd like to have back, particularly the pick 6 that he threw out of the end zone was a very, very bad pass. But as you're saying, he put that behind him, and the players kind of rallied around him. And it was a very good game to watch outside of the penalties. But Jameis Winston coming back to the team today, starting this morning, he has his work cut out for him. Obviously, next week is going to be interesting. They're at Chicago.
Yep.
Then they have the bye.
Yep.
And it may be during the bye week if Fitzpatrick struggles against the Bears, where they go back to Jameis. But if this is my team, I continue going Ryan Fitzpatrick because, as you were saying, they're in sync. They're making big plays. And, a ball bounces here or there in that game last night. They come back from being, 30-10.
30-10.
So this team kept fighting the whole way.
I'll give you some more numbers. In 12 games, they've each started 6. In the last 6 started by Fitzpatrick, they're 4-2. In the 6 started by Winston, they're 1-5. Winston's average about 275, thrown 9 touchdown passes. Fitzpatrick 329 and thrown 14 touchdown passes. So I still think the Steelers are a mess with their defense. I actually watching the game and I'm thinking, okay, if the Bucs get the ball back with enough time, you think they're actually going to go down the field. They kept mentioning, the Bell situation during the broadcast ad nauseum. After a while, I just kind of muted it because I get it. Everyone's got different sides and they got different takes on this. But there seems to be this disconnect or something going on within the organization, whether it's resonating through Tomlin down to the players. There's something going on where, forget about how bad their defense is, they don't have that Steeler look to them. They don't. I think they saved their season last night by winning, but something still seems to be off.
Yeah, Q. Now they're one of the cornerstone NFL franchises, but as you're saying, they're not playing the Steeler way, particularly as disciplined football and running the ball effectiveness and that defense being able to get off the field, particularly on third downs and getting sacks. Yeah, they did sack Fitzpatrick 3 times and they get the interception, but as you were saying, kind of sloppy play throughout the game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. 13 penalties in a game, and they're the most penalized team in the NFL. And they just kind of breathed a sigh of relief when James Conner got that big first down and able to run the clock out and get out of there with a victory. So, yes, they are in the mix in the AFC North going into a big battle with the Ravens, their arch rival. And, they're going to have to win that game, but they're going to have to be disciplined to win it. They're going to have to run the ball more effectively, particularly that offensive line's got to do a better job dictating the game. And then Big Ben, he did come alive in certain situations, but there were other parts of that game where he kind of struggled. So the Steelers are going to continue to try to clean some things up, and hopefully by late October we'll know exactly who they are.
Now listen, the worst kept secret in the NFL was Baker Mayfield was going to start after being down 14-0. Taylor gets knocked out and gets the Jets, and Mayfield comes in, they win the game. I mean, listen, Taylor doesn't go out. Maybe we're not having this conversation, but because of that injury, it looks like it gives Hugh Jackson another year on life support here with Baker Mayfield. Listen, I think he should have started from the get-go. I think it's an indictment on the head coach that he didn't start from the get-go, but it'll be interesting to see what this kid does going forward.
It was. It was nice to see them stop that 19-game loss streak and second longest NFL history since 1970, and he was very efficient in the game, 17-23. Didn't throw any interceptions, and then obviously they had the big trick play where he gets 2-point conversion. He just energized the whole team, the stadium, and the team needed that. The poor Jets, obviously, they're downtrodden as well, but Cleveland, it was a very good victory for him. And you see the offensive weapons that Mayfield has around him, and the offensive line is not that bad as well. So there's some pieces there, and that defense is very good too. So we'll see how the kid does go in the next couple of weeks, but he definitely deserves an opportunity to start.
A couple quickies on the NFC East. Your impressions of Carson Wentz. Listen, I think there were some anxious jitters. You want to call it rust, you want to call it timing, but when he settled in and he started to make those plays and he scrambled around for those 3rd and 9s and 3rd and 8s and kept the drive alive, you just kind of saw it's kind of vintage Carson Wentz. I don't have any concerns with him whatsoever. My concern would be that you got to get a Jeffrey back. You got to get a running back maybe to distinguish himself a little more aside from the running back by committee. Yeah, you can win some games, but I still – the offensive weapons, even though they've got some injuries there, they don't scare me right now. They just don't.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Philadelphia Eagles. They have the Super Bowl title underneath their belt, but right now they're kind of struggling to find that consistency. Another tough but ugly win for them. Carson Wentz was sacked 5 times in that game. So a guy coming off of ACL playing in the rain, you really don't want that, but he toughed it out. And the key thing is that defense of the Philadelphia Eagles, they're still not allowing a lot of scoring. They're allowing a lot of yardage, but they got to stop teams before that. In the red zone, they only allowed 1 of 5 for the Colts, and they had a big fourth quarter stand. So that was huge for the Eagles defense. But this is a team kind of coming together. Wentz is truly their unquestioned leader, and you saw he gave him a spark. So I think the Eagles will continue moving forward, and he's their guy.
Hey, listen, I'm a big believer in karma. So when I saw the tweet that Flowers was going to be benched about 12-15, I felt pretty good that the Giants maybe would have a chance to win. The offensive line was improved, but ultimately it fell on the hands of the quarterback that everyone basically wrote his obituary 2 weeks ago. And to be fair, he didn't play well against Dallas, but then he has a vintage performance against the Texans. And Eli was sharp, and he was slinging it. Now they'll lose Ingram a little bit, but you start to get a sense when you roll him out a little bit, you give him some time to make some plays, that offense should be able to move the football a little bit.
Definitely. Chad Wheeler comes in for Eric Flowers, and that seemed to pick up the whole entire offense. Yes, J.J. Watt got some sacks of Eli Manning in the game, and he was pretty dominant at times. But Eli shook it all off, 25-29, 86% in terms of completions, no interceptions. And then they also got Saquon Barkley going, got him close to 100 yards. He had 82 and a touchdown, and kept Odell happy getting his catch as well. So very good win for the Giants. They scored 27 points for the first time in like 21 games, and we'll see if these guys are able to keep it going.
Well, how about the defense, too? Kerry Wynn had himself a hell of a game. I mean, their run defense, as long as Snacks is back there, they give up Vernon. But that is, you give up the, by the way, garbage points late. But the defense is played. I think it's a little underrated. I think that unit is going to start to come into their own. The Dallas Cowboys, we mentioned this yesterday. I think they were able to mask a lot of their deficiencies because of a very good offensive line and at the time a rookie running back who burst on the scene in Elliott. Prescott, you give him his just due for that rookie year with the numbers and the stats and the touchdowns and the really low level with the picks. The numbers were gaudy. But now you're starting to see Prescott is a quarterback that he's just not going to win them games. He might make some plays, but if that line's not there, if you can't run the football, and even when they ran the football, the accuracy is an issue. I just don't know. I get the feeling that if it goes south, they go 6-10, 5-11, Jerry Jones might turn around and blow everything up. Now, I know they got some injuries, and I think maybe you guys think I'm being a little too harsh here or maybe exaggerating, but I can get that sense that if it all goes south, he's going to blow everything up, and he's going to bring in another head coach. Maybe they draft a quarterback, and maybe they start from scratch again.
Yes, Q, and this is a dire situation with the Dallas Cowboys. As you were saying, Dak Prescott is a system quarterback, a guy who's just game manager. Hasn't thrown for 200 yards in 9 of 11 last start. So he's just being a guy that's just efficient. And Ezekiel Elliott makes that team go. He did have 127 yards, but he had a huge fumble in that game. He also had a costly penalty where he went out of bounds and then caught the football as well. And then in terms of the Seahawks, they just got more physical than the Cowboys, rushing for over 100 yards first time in a while. And then, as you're saying, Dak Prescott with the 2 bad interceptions, both by Earl Thomas. So this was a good quality win for the Seahawks at home. But again, for the Dallas Cowboys, they seem to be reeling. And you're right. Maybe when they do make that change, Jerry Jones should fire himself as general manager and find somebody that really can do some football.
I wouldn't go that far. How about you look around the NFL during the weekend, and we saw a bunch of rookie quarterbacks get the nod as well. We saw Mayfield, we saw Allen, we saw Rosen, we saw a bunch of young guys come in and play. I mean, I think Bradford's done in Arizona. I think they had to go that route, and I think Buffalo is so desperate to give the fan base something to feel good about. They decide, okay, we'll throw in Allen, and the kid, he made a couple plays here and there. there. There's always going to be the growing pains, but what you saw from those young quarterbacks, it just seems as though they should be the starters going forward because those teams respectively aren't going anywhere.
You're right, Q. And these coaches and general managers that select these guys in the first round, they're married to these quarterbacks, and they're going to live and die with them. And when you look at the situation with Josh Allen, why not play him? Nathan Peterman is not a very good quarterback, so put Allen out there. He gave the team a spark, as you were saying, made some big runs, some big throws, and that was the biggest upset of the season. So why not put him out there, see what he can do? We saw him. We saw Baker Mayfield. Rosen, I thought they put him in a bad situation coming in with 4 minutes and some change trying to win a football game against the Bears, a very good attacking defense. He almost did it, but he had some bad throws, and they got picked off. So, Rosen will get his opportunity to go out there and lead his team, and why not play all these guys? Now we got to see if Lamar Jackson can ever get on the field instead of Flacco.
Yeah, well, Flacco, they keep winning some games, and he's throwing the ball well. You might not see Jackson for a little bit. So, all right, my friend, week 4 is upon us already. We'll be a quarter way through the season. Always appreciate a couple moments. We will talk next week. Always appreciate the insight, bud.
All right, look forward to it. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. Lloyd Vance on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline.